We could ask people, have you ever been unfairly fired because of your race? Where it's one question, we put race into the question, or in your entire life, have you ever been unfairly fired? And if you said yes, we could say how many times. And then later on, we can ask you, what do you think was the main reason? And so it's called a one stage versus two stage. One stage, you build the race into the question, or separately just get a clean description of what has happened, and later on then ask what it was. And so we had struggles like that. What's the best way to word these questions and so on? And James was the person who provided feedback and co-taught. There's a practicum in survey research seminar that we were using as the mechanism to design this survey, and he co-taught the survey class with me and raised money to increase the sample size so we'd have a large sample. And the paper that I co-published with him, which introduced to the scientific field the everyday discrimination scale, is the most cited paper in my career, of over 5,000 citations to this paper. And one of my students here did a meta-analysis 2 years ago, and there were more 450 papers from around the world have used the everyday discrimination scale. And it's something that I developed. I had the idea, but he provided the ingredients that helped it to flourish and made it what is today the most widely used scale globally to assess the impact of discrimination. And I would say the findings for the scale have been stunning. There's studies using the everyday discrimination scale that finds higher levels of discrimination are linked not just to higher levels of mental health symptoms, but are linked to new cases, new cases of breast cancer, of type 2 diabetes, of hypertension, linked to subclinical disease process like high levels of cortisol and other markers of inflammation, linked to heart rate variation, linked to obesity, linked to visceral fat. It's just the research evidence, it has documented now that this measure of discrimination, as well as others, it's not the only one used, but this measure of discrimination predicts poor health, not just for African Americans, but for Aboriginals in Australia and the Maori in New Zealand. And I've used it in national data in South Africa and in countries around the world. It's not only captures racial discrimination, it captures discrimination of the LGBTQ population, because we came up with this strategy of just asking, has this happened to you? So we get a clear description from everyone, and then what do you think was the main reason? So that his work in helping me and mentoring me to develop the everyday discrimination scale and other measures of discrimination, I would say was the single biggest impact on his career. On the other hand, I would say when I looked at my CV, there are 38 papers on my CV that are co-authored with James. And I learned something about him. He was more generous than he had time. So sometimes we talk about a paper and he'd say, I'll write the first draft. I soon learned, don't wait for James to write the full draft. He's still busy. It's not going to happen. So I would write the first draft, and every paper I have ever written with James was so much better after I shared with him the first draft and he gave me additional feedback.